The Saturday afternoon sun filtered through the kitchen window as I prepped dinner, listening to the sounds of my son Tyler's video game session upstairs, mixing with the deeper voices of my brother-in-law Marcus and his teammates in the living room. It was supposed to be a relaxing weekend. Marcus and 3 of his Navy SEAL team members were on leave, staying with us for a few days before heading back to their base in Virginia Beach. My name is Rebecca Torres, and I'm a single mom raising my 15-year-old son in the Clearwater Heights community just outside San Diego. Tyler's a good kid, honor roll student, basketball player, the kind of teenager who still says yes, ma'am, and helps elderly neighbors with their groceries. We'd lived here for 3 years without any major issues, until Gerald Hutchins became HOA president 6 months ago. Gerald was the kind of man who measured his worth by how much control he had over others. Within weeks of taking office, he'd transformed our friendly neighborhood association into something resembling a police state. Fines for grass being a quarter-inch too long. Violations for holiday decorations being up 1 day past the approved date. Threatening letters about kids' bikes left in driveways. But his latest obsession was teenagers. Gerald had convinced himself, and tried to convince the board, that the neighborhood teens were a criminal element that needed to be controlled. He'd instituted a 7 p.m. curfew for anyone under 18, despite having no legal authority to do so. When parents pushed back, he'd started calling the actual police on kids for suspicious activity, like walking home from a friend's house after dark or shooting. Hoops in their own driveways past sunset. The real cops had stopped responding after the 5th or 6th false call. So Gerald found another solution. I was chopping vegetables when I heard the aggressive pounding on my front door, not knocking, but the kind of authoritative hammering designed to intimidate and frighten. From the living room, I heard Marcus's voice, instantly alert. "Beck, stay in the kitchen. We'll handle it." I moved to where I could see the front door. Through the window, I could see 4 men in what looked like police tactical uniforms, black pants, black shirts with police patches, utility belts, and badges hanging around their necks. Marcus was already at the door, his 3 teammates, Jake, Reese, and Tommy, flanking him with the kind of casual positioning that wasn't casual at all. These were operators, and even in civilian clothes, cargo shorts and t-shirts, they moved with lethal precision. Marcus opened the door but didn't step back. At 6'3" and 220 pounds of pure muscle, he filled the doorway completely. "Can I help you?" His voice was calm, measured, but I could hear the steel underneath. The lead officer, a thick-necked man with a crew cut and a neck tattoo poorly hidden by his collar, pushed forward aggressively. "We're here for Tyler Torres. We have a warrant for his arrest for vandalism and curfew violations." "Step aside." Marcus didn't move. "I'm going to need to see that warrant. And your badges, and which department you're with. We don't have time for this." "Tyler Torres! Come out now or we're coming in!" Tyler appeared at the top of the stairs, his face pale with confusion and fear. "Mom, what's going on?" "Stay upstairs, baby," I called out, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to stay calm. The lead fake cop tried to push past Marcus. That was his first mistake. Marcus's hand shot out, catching the man's wrist in a grip that made the guy's face contort with pain. I said, "Show me your credentials. You don't enter this house without proper identification and a warrant signed by a judge." "We are the police," the man snarled, reaching for something on his belt, probably pepper spray or a taser. That's when Jake spoke up from Marcus's right. "No, you're not. Your badges are costume replicas. The serial number format is wrong. Your police patches are oriented incorrectly. Real ones have the American flag facing forward, yours are backward. Your utility belts are missing standard issue equipment. And most telling, you have no body cameras, which every actual law enforcement officer in this county is required to wear." The fake cops froze, realizing they'd just tried to intimidate the wrong people. Reese pulled out his phone, already dialing. "This is Petty Officer First Class Reese Davidson, U.S. Navy. I need actual law enforcement at 2847 Clearwater Heights Drive. We have 4 individuals impersonating police officers attempting to enter a private residence to unlawfully detain a minor. They're making threats and attempted assault on a federal officer." "You're making a big mistake," the lead fake cop blustered, but his confidence was cracking. The HOA authorized you to impersonate law enforcement officers? Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. The HOA authorized you to attempt to kidnap a minor? That's a federal crime, friend. Multiple federal crimes, actually. Tommy had moved to the window, watching. 2 more in a vehicle across the street. Black SUV, fake police lights. I'm getting plate numbers. The fake cops were backing away now, realizing how badly this had gone sideways. Tyler! The lead man shouted up the stairs. You can come peacefully or you'll be back in handcuffs, Marcus cut him off. Those are real sirens you're hearing. Actual police responding to actual crimes, the ones you're committing right now. Indeed, the wail of approaching sirens was growing louder. The fake cops looked at each other, panic replacing their earlier bravado. This isn't over, one of them shouted as they retreated toward their vehicle. Actually, it is, Jake called after them. We've got you on video, we've got your plates, and you just threatened a minor in front of 4 Navy SEALs. You're done. 3 San Diego Police Department cruisers arrived within minutes, followed by a sergeant's vehicle. The real officers, with real badges, real uniforms, and real authority, took one look at the fake cops trying to get into their fake police SUV and had them on the ground in handcuffs within seconds. Sergeant Rodriguez approached our door, where Marcus still stood guard. Sir, I understand you called this in? Petty Officer First Class Reese Davidson called it in, Sergeant. I'm Lieutenant Marcus Williams, U.S. Naval Special Warfare Development Group. These are Petty Officers Jake Martinez and Tommy Chen. We're on leave, staying with my sister-in-law and her son when these individuals attempted to force entry claiming to be police officers with a warrant to arrest a 15-year-old boy. Rodriguez's eyebrows rose. Navy SEALs? Yes, sir. They picked the wrong house, Rodriguez said with a slight smile. Then his expression hardened. This is the 4th incident this month with this HOA. We've had complaints about fake police, illegal detentions, and intimidation tactics. This Gerald Hutchins character has been hiring private security and dressing them up like cops to enforce HOA rules. I stepped forward, finding my voice. He's been terrorizing the teenagers in this neighborhood, claiming he can arrest them for being outside after his made-up curfew. My son hasn't done anything wrong. He's never even had a detention at school, let alone committed any crime. Ma'am, I need to take your statement, and I'd like to hear from your son as well. But first, he gestured to the fake cops being loaded into actual police cars. These men are being charged with impersonating law enforcement officers, attempted kidnapping, criminal intimidation, conspiracy, and trespassing. If your son wants to press additional charges for the threats made against him, we can add those too. Tyler came downstairs slowly, still looking shaken. Marcus put a hand on his shoulder. You're safe, buddy. These men can't hurt you. Over the next 2 hours, we gave detailed statements. The SEALs provided expert testimony about why the uniforms and badges were fake, which carried significant weight. Tyler explained Gerald's campaign of harassment against the neighborhood teens, supported by testimonies from other families that the police had been collecting. But the real breakthrough came when one of the fake cops, facing serious federal charges, decided to cooperate. He provided everything: contracts with Gerald Hutchins, payments made through the HOA budget without board approval, instructions to arrest and detain specific teenagers whose parents had opposed Gerald's policies, and even audio recordings of Gerald explicitly telling them to make it look real and scare these punk kids straight. Gerald Hutchins was arrested at his home that evening. The charges were extensive: conspiracy to kidnap, fraud, embezzlement of HOA funds, criminal intimidation, and about a dozen other counts that the district attorney kept adding as more evidence emerged. It turned out Gerald had been funneling HOA money to this fake security company which was run by his brother-in-law for months. He'd used them to harass families he didn't like, enforce made-up rules, and generally terrorize a community he was supposed to be serving. The HOA board held an emergency meeting and removed Gerald immediately. They also discovered he'd been embezzling funds beyond just the security payments, nearly $80,000 over 6 months, spent on everything from his personal car, payments to a vacation home in Arizona, the fake security company lost its license, not that. Tactical response solutions had been much of a legitimate business to begin with. All 6 men involved in the attempted detention of Tyler received felony convictions. Gerald Hutchins pleaded guilty to avoid trial and got 4 years in federal prison. But the story that spread through the community and eventually went viral on local news was about the 4 Navy SEALs who'd been in the right place at the right time. HOA's "Fake Cops Meet Real Warriors" was the headline on the San Diego Tribune. The story detailed how Gerald's scheme had been exposed when his hired thugs tried to intimidate a teenager in a house full of Navy SEALs. Marcus and his team were embarrassed by the attention, but Tyler was in awe. "Uncle Marcus, you guys were so calm. I was terrified, but you just handled it." Marcus smiled, ruffling Tyler's hair. "That's what training does, kid. You learn to stay cool under pressure, assess threats, and respond appropriately. Those guys were bullies in costumes. We faced actual threats in actual war zones. They never stood a chance." The community underwent a transformation after Gerald's removal. The new HOA president, a retired teacher named Mrs. Patterson, immediately rescinded all of Gerald's ridiculous rules. The made-up teen curfew was abolished. Fines were refunded. The HOA went back to what it should have been, a community organization focused on maintaining property values and organizing neighborhood events, not harassing residents. Several families that Gerald had targeted came forward with their own stories of intimidation and illegal enforcement. A class action lawsuit against Gerald personally, separate from his criminal charges, resulted in significant settlements for families he'd harassed. As for Tyler, the experience changed him. He went from a quiet, somewhat timid teenager to someone with a lot more confidence. He'd seen what real authority looked like. Not bullies in fake uniforms, but trained professionals who knew the law, respected rights, and protected people who couldn't protect themselves. He started talking about joining the military after high school, maybe even trying for the SEALs like his uncle. Marcus told him it was the toughest training in the world, but if he wanted it badly enough and was willing to work for it, anything was possible. The fake cops who'd pounded on our door that Saturday afternoon thought they were going to intimidate and arrest a teenager to satisfy a tyrant's power trip. Instead, they walked into a house with 4 Navy SEALs, got immediately identified as frauds, were arrested by real police, and helped expose a criminal conspiracy that had been terrorizing an entire community. Sometimes justice comes from the courts. Sometimes it comes from good police work. And sometimes it comes from the fact that fake authority crumbles instantly when it encounters the real thing. Marcus and his team left for Virginia Beach a few days later, but not before Tyler made them promise to come back soon. At the door, Tyler hugged his uncle and said, "Thanks for protecting us." Marcus smiled. "Always, kid. That's what family does, and that's what we're trained for. Protecting people from bullies, whether they're overseas or wearing fake police uniforms in suburban HOAs." As I watched them drive away, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Not just that they'd been there that day, but for the reminder that real strength isn't about intimidation or fake authority. It's about training, discipline, protecting those who can't protect themselves, and standing up to bullies no matter what costume they're wearing. Gerald Hutchins learned that lesson the hard way from the inside of a federal prison cell. And our community learned that sometimes the best defense against tyranny is having people who know the difference between real authority and fake power, and who have the courage to call it out.